Welcome to the University of Findlay Art and Culture Show. I am Sharinda, your host, and we are excited that this is our 5th season on the air. And we are kicking off this year's season with Mr. Tracy Silverman. Welcome to the set.
Thank you.
It is so great to see you again.
It's nice to be back in Findlay.
Yeah. Tracy, you are a man of many talents.
Thank you.
And also many creations.
Yep.
And I want to introduce our viewers to you on so many different levels, but I want to take us all the way back to your school years because you are an honor, not just a graduate, but you have also been honored through the School of Juilliard, which is a fine arts school in New York City.
Yes, it is.
It was one that I dreamt of going to one day, but I'm excited that I know many who have graduated from there. So what was your field of focus at Juilliard?
Violin performance.
And was that mainly classical?
And completely classical. In fact, this is, a big part of my mission in life is to try to enlarge string playing, the world of string playing for people beyond the classical world.
And it's not because you don't like the classical, it's because with the evolution of our lives and the youth, they are not being exposed. Music programs are being taken away. They're not being exposed to classical, but they still have interest in music. So you have thought through in your design of your craft a way to reconnect current generations to strings.
Exactly what I'm trying to do. My theory, and I'm not the only one who has this theory, by the way, is that if strings don't evolve, they may
They'll go
eventually
extinct.
Perish. Because, for a lot of kids, if you ask your typical kid, like student here at the college, what is a violin? What does a violin do? They're going to say classical or symphony or maybe movie scores because that might be their point of connection to strings. But it has very little to do, it's not relevant the way hip hop is relevant or the way the pop music that they listen to is a part of their life. And in that world, instruments like the guitar, for especially my generation, for more of a rock generation, it was all about guitars. Now guitars are a little less the focus.
Unless you're in more of the country.
Right.
Because we've got the country rock that's kind of replaced the 80s rock.
Yeah, for sure.
So again, evolution.
But the way guitars were a big part of pop music, strings just aren't, and they haven't been ever really. And so I think, I feel like it's my mission in life to try to get kids to play strings, but not just the usual way this is done is, symphony members from a local orchestra will come out to the schools and try to interest kids in, here's what violins can do, and here's a beautiful piece by Mozart and a beautiful piece by Beethoven, and it is beautiful music. I was raised on that, and I have a deep love for classical music. I went to music school, but for most kids, it's not
their hook.
Yeah, it's like trying to get them to eat their vegetables. So my theory is let's try to get them to eat hamburgers that they want, but instead of just thinking, oh, this is music that is only for other instruments like guitars, saxes, or keyboards, or cool stuff like that. Strings can participate in that, but they have to be a little different. They have to evolve with the times. So that's kind of what I'm really focused on.
And with that, you are a professor. We're fast forwarding many years because we don't have that much time together for this interview. But you are now a professor at Beaumont, which is a very prestigious school in Nashville. Tennessee. And you've also written some textbooks that are used there, as well as they are used by other musicians and instructors around the world. And we have a mutual friend that actually wrote a chapter in one of your books.
Yes, indeed.
And so that's fun. But there's a whole movement that you have worked with and you are training new generations called strumbowing.
Yes.
And so let's talk about that a little bit because I'm a cellist. So I was so excited in 4th grade that the first day I got my cello, I learned the song D.A.D. That's far from classical, but I already knew a song. I was going to be wonderful at this instrument. Those are 2 strings.
Open strings on the cello.
But So you have gone from pizzicato and what's it called? Staccato
Yes.
and the long and the short.
Legato.
And yes. And you have gone strumbowing. So what is strumbowing?
So strumbowing is my method for teaching classical players how to groove. Okay, and it's very simple idea, as you can imagine. I can sum it up in one sentence. Use your bow like you're strumming a guitar.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. So, for instance, and to just kind of give you a quick example, if you asked string players, I'm going to just run out of the frame for a second, entertain people. I'm going to get my bow.
Grab a bow, yes.
Exactly. And here I am, back in
again.
frame. And so
kids at home, don't do this. You must rosin first.
So just real simply, if you asked a string player to play a riff like da 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 da, they would play something like this. Da 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 da. Now this is unamplified right now. Normally it has to go through an amp. So it's quiet, but I'm just demonstrating the bowing.
But it's right there by your mic, so that's helpful.
Oh yeah, probably making banging and making all kinds of noise. So so that's what we call like as it comes bowing. But if you ask a guitar player to do that, they would never go like this. They would never go.
Right.
Because you don't play guitar like that, right? You would play it something like this. And what they're doing is strumming the whole time, not just strumming the notes that they want to hear.
So it's not as...
Yeah, it grooves.
Right.
It grooves. So, and it's a super simple idea, but it's not anything they taught me at Juilliard. It's not a classical technique.
I didn't learn it either.
Yeah, this idea of ghosting with your bow so you can keep it going without making noise. They taught me how to play music. They didn't tell me how to not play music at Juilliard because, they're charging that much tuition. You don't want to teach somebody how to not play.
There's only one way to play.
Exactly. So long story short, that's kind of what strumbowing is. So I've written some books on that. I've got online courses, and it's, I think, a way to really open up string playing to more contemporary grooves and sounds so that you're not locked in this classical box where you don't know how to improvise anything or to, play.
Well, and that's so important too, because unfortunately, people are taught to boxes many times, and not just in music, but in other subjects too. So they're never given permission to think outside of that box. Yeah. And part of what you're doing is you're leaving the box kind of open for them to explore the world of improvisation,
to crawl in.
Yeah, which is you experience that in jazz, you experience that in blues, not classical.
Correct.
And we're seeing more the violins, the violas, the cellos cross over into the blues and the jazz.
And more. Yeah.
But it's taken generations of safety guards being taken off of boxes.
And that's exactly right. And it's tough because teachers generally are not, they've been brought up in classical music.
They don't feel safe with it.
They teach what they know.
Exactly.
So a big part of what I'm doing is trying to educate teachers how to bring this new stuff to their students, because they don't really, a lot of them just haven't been taught how to do that. And this is kind of talking about, speaking about getting outside of the box.
And I was going to segue right there. So we are right on
show our viewers this thing. So
you designed this.
I did, yeah.
Because you had a vision for what you wanted the violin to be able to do, so that you could play music beyond classical.
Exactly.
And this tiger wood is just absolutely, it's just gorgeous.
So this was made by Joe Glazer in Nashville, Tennessee. He's a great luthier down there. And this is the most recent one I have. I've been doing this since the 1980s. I started making these 6-string electric violins. So most violins have 4 strings, and they only go down the top 4 strings, and only goes down to so far. But I added 2 lower strings, so it goes down to the range of the cello, which is also incidentally the range of the guitar. And it looks kind of like a guitar. It's got 6 strings like a guitar. Normally I have a neck strap around here so that I can sing or whatever while I'm playing. And it's really modeled after the idea of replacing a guitar, doing the same job that a guitar can do in a band, playing chords, which is different from what strings usually do, which is
Correct.
playing melodies.
Correct. Or harmonies or bass lines,
right.
yeah. And so with this, if someone's very familiar with looking at a violin or a viola, they're also missing the sound holes.
Yes.
And that's where the
Exactly.
plug comes in, correct?
Yes, exactly. So this is actually a semi-hollow. It's not solid plank of wood or it would weigh a ton. It's actually hollow, like a violin. So it's fairly relatively light, but it doesn't have the F holes, the sound holes, or a round hole like an acoustic guitar. And the purpose of that is because if it's too resonant, like a violin is designed to ring, and it doesn't amplify well. So if you want to play with distortion and effects, things like that, it's better to have limited amount of resonance, natural resonance.
And what you're known for when you're doing solo concerts is using the looper, which is a piece of technology where you are building the harmonies and recording it right on site. And then as it plays back, you can play on top of it and fill it in. So people are amazed at all these different things, the different instruments they can hear, the different lines. One of my favorite things you do is Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin because it really shows and demonstrates that, but it's a song that even younger generations may not know what it is. They recognize it from movies. They recognize it from something. So it catches their attention, and just to watch it build into this castle is just amazing, or to hear it with our ears.
Well, the cool thing with using a loop, live looping, is that the audience gets to hear the song being constructed. It's almost like you're in the studio and like, okay, we're going to put down the guitar line, now we're going to add the bass line, now here's the drum line. And
but they just follow it and are on this journey with you.
Yeah, they can see it being constructed and how it all works, and so that's kind of half the fun.
And then it's a wah at the end.
And then you go like, wow, all that sound from one little instrument. So.
Yeah, and in addition to doing the writing and creating, you have been celebrated around the world with symphonies, again, choosing to think outside of the box and create scores that celebrate and feature your instrument. So it's still celebrating classical music and those instruments, but they're coming together in orchestration to celebrate the evolution of strings.
So this is the other side of my mission in life with this instrument, is to get serious classical composers to write for this as a serious new instrument, so that people don't think of it as maybe something gimmicky or a toy or something like that. So
it's still lots of hours of practice.
Oh my goodness, it's harder to play than a acoustic violin, not easier.
And people don't understand this if they're not a musician. It is a relationship with your instrument. You have to get to know it.
Well, you spend that many
emotions,
hours with it.
Yeah.
But
so to trust someone to write for it is also a compliment to the composer. Yes, thank you. That's what the word I was looking for. I was like, not the conductor, the composer. Yes.
So I've worked with a few pretty well-known American composers. John Adams wrote a concerto for me called The Dharma at Big Sur that we premiered in 2003.
And I just love that.
And I just played it actually last week in Estonia, in Tallinn, Estonia, which is right near St. Petersburg, Russia. It's a long ways away. And flew out there to play it with the National Symphony out there. And Terry Riley, another great American composer, wrote a concerto for me that we debuted at Carnegie Hall and recorded that with the Nashville Symphony. So, and I've written 3 concertos for 6-string electric violin. So, trying to build this repertoire so that future generations, the younger generation,
have some meat and potatoes.
Exactly. There's some stuff that can be. It's not just a matter of bringing strings to recording studios and jazz or rock clubs and whatever dance hall clubs, but bringing the electric violin to concert halls as well.
And you've had some really fun opportunities yourself. Tell us about Bella and the Flecktones.
Oh, yeah. Bella's great. Bella Fleck's a good friend of mine. We actually live really close to each other in Nashville. And I work a lot with Future Man, Roy Wooten, who is the percussionist in the Flecktones and plays the drum guitar that he invented. We have a duo that we were just playing last week, actually, in St. Louis.
And then others will recognize Jim Brickman.
Jim Brickman, been touring with for many years, pianist from Ohio.
And
Cleveland
you do
area.
a lot of his holiday tours at different times when your schedule permits.
Exactly.
And if you're interested, there's a fun YouTube video of you and Jim celebrating Disney in one of your tours, and you being on your violin, doing all the different Disney theme music, and then him coming in with the piano under. It's a fun video.
We've done a bunch of videos together.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and you've been featured on Tiny Desk, is that what it's called, on NPR?
Tiny Desk concert.
So just some fun stuff. And Tracy he's a busy man, but in addition to all of this, he also keeps his fans connected through a fun podcast, as well as you have Scuttlebutt.
Yes, my newsletter.
And I love Scuttlebutt.
The Scuttlebutt.
When it pops up in my email during the day of work, I'm like, it's Tracy. Let's see what fun things he's doing.
It used to be the monthly Scuttlebutt, which was like maybe 4 times a year.
Yeah, but now it's about every other week.
Every
There's
week.
Stuff happening.
Every week. I committed to a weekly thing because I've got a podcast now, which is every other week. But I'm trying to stay connected a little more. It was something that through the pandemic, I started all this educational stuff and got the podcast going. And so spending a little more time online with all of that and social media and staying in touch with people that way, because touring just kind of stopped.
Yeah.
So shifted a little bit.
How do individuals connect with you so that they can listen to the podcasts?
Yeah.
Or how do they sign up so they receive the Scuttlebutt?
The Scuttlebutt. So the best place is tracysilverman.com, and it's TRACY, no E, no I, TRACY, Silverman.com. I've got the link on there to my podcast, which is called For the Greater Groove, The Future of Strings.
I love that.
Please subscribe, leave reviews if you like. And on my website, you can sign up for the Scuttlebutt for my email list is at the bottom of every page of my website. So.
And there's amazing information on his website about his bio. I have just touched the top surface. This man is incredible and so humble. It's so fun to work with you. And I love every time that you're in the area and we can connect to have you here to introduce you to new generations of students. I love it because I never worry about how you're going to be with them. You always make them so comfortable, and you're just such a joy to watch and listen to. So I invite you, if you are in the area, stop out, but definitely connect digitally to Tracy. You will not be disappointed. And you have many albums out.
I do.
You've written concertos, but you've also recorded a lot. And I think I have 3 of I think 7. Do you have 7 out now?
I think there's more than that, but
I'm sure there is.
Depending, I have a lot of duos with different people,
and they're all just wonderful. If you like to have music going while you're preparing food, he's got one. If you like to just come down after a day, he's got one. If you need to creatively write, he's got music that can help energize that. It's just amazing stuff.
Oh, thanks, Sharinda. Yeah, my most recent one I did with my son.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he was 13 then, he's 14 now, but he started making hip-hop beats.
Okay.
On a software called Fruity Loops. And he taught himself how to do it just watching, YouTube tutorials and stuff, and got really good at it. He just started cranking out these really cool, like interesting, they weren't just like standard stuff. He was like messing with it, changing keys and doing cool stuff, and I was like, this is really cool. So I started playing on him, and I put together a whole album of it. It's called Beats and Jams.
Fun.
And it's just the two of us. It's just his music and me playing on top. And I'm playing this style that I don't know what else to call it. I call it sick violin playing, just because it's kind of, twisted and crazy. And I really, it's very non-classical, very non-classical. It sounds more
street.
More like a guitar, a distorted guitar, or maybe something you would hear out of sax or a trumpet or something like that. So very non-string perspective.
So maybe we'll get them on America's Got Talent. Wouldn't that be fun? A father-son duo.
Yeah, really.
I can see it happening. Well, Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be back.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you. You're one of my faves.
Thanks.
And thank you for tuning in. I can't wait to see you the next time here at the Art and Culture Show. Until then, be well.